Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to dive in on this master of our realm here. Greg Tapper is the founder CEO of Pattern AI, and that's at getpattern.ai. That took me a while to get, and is a real. I mean, as someone when I have questions about AI for sales technology or just AI in general, I go to Greg. So, Greg, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thanks, David. Great to be here as always. I'm doing great. I'm here at the AWS reInvent conference, so I'm doing great, capturing the buzz, which will not surprise you what it's all about. Take a guess, quick guess, pop quiz.
What is the buzzword at the conference?
Yeah, the buzzword's definitely AI. Not as much generative AI, although there is quite a bit of that, but AI in general, I think is just the next thing. Which, if you really, think about it, it's like saying software.
Yeah.
Okay, like okay, so you got AI. It's AI is going to be as common. It's almost as common as software is today. It's kind of funny to say, now with AI,
Yeah.
now with software, everything has software in it.
Just throw it
Actually,
on
another
me.
interesting thing is data security is really, which kind of goes part and parcel with AI. I'm seeing a lot of booths and a lot of discussion around data security, and I think that's not just because of AI. I just think that that's just a big consideration for people today. So it's almost as big as AI. There's a lot of talk about data and privacy at the conference here. So
You could see it, that getting out of control really quickly as far as data
mhm.
privacy. And
Mhm.
one thing, it was interesting what we were talking about the other day is I came to you and said, Greg, where's the convergence of sales technology with AI? And you flipped it around and said, David, it's actually AI and its application to sales technology is where we've come to. And it's almost like what you're saying with software. Software was eating the world, and now it's AI is eating the world, and everyone seems to be an expert.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Everybody's an expert now. And look, people are doing their jobs. I mean, we're all just trying to stay relevant, right? And so everybody who wasn't an expert in AI, and I always like to say probably didn't know how to spell AI, a year ago, is now like an expert in AI, right? But everybody's just, at least they're probably doing what they should be doing, of course, in all seriousness, is developing and getting involved in the conversation and developing perspectives on this new thing, right? And I think the people who continue to do that, like we are right now, but the people who continue to have these conversations will eventually become experts. And so, you think about your career, and we're both still young, so we have a lot of, career in front of us. But if you think about your career kind of goes in different shifts, and the shift is now toward AI. And so you have to start developing the vernacular around AI, understand how it works. I wish more people would really understand how it works, but that's certainly what's happening in the market today.
Yeah. And you've been working on this problem for 4 years, and now suddenly everyone's waking up to the power of AI. I mean, you've been working on this for a long time. And where did the shift happen where suddenly everyone started using chat gpt and now they're an expert in AI?
Yeah. Well, so what happened with AI? So we've been 4 years at Pattern AI, and then a couple of years when I was at McKinsey, where we were doing conversation intelligence. So we were, back then they were called machine learning. So we work with like ML engineers, right? So now it's all AI, but that's okay. So there's this overarching thing called artificial intelligence that people are talking about. The first slide in our deck 4 years ago, when we were raising seed money, was some slide with some quote from Sundar Pichai that AI is going to be bigger than electricity or fire or something like that. And of course, that slide is no longer in our deck. I think everybody understands this is a big deal, but it just goes to show you that just 4 years ago, we had to try to convince investors that AI was going to be this big thing. And of course, a lot of investors being investors and entrepreneurs being entrepreneurs, there's a lot less vision in this town than you might think, or that the valley sort of portrays itself to have. They're all doing NFTs and crypto, which I still don't understand. I mean, I understand it, but not understand what those business models are. And now everybody kind of jumps into it. And the reason it's exploded is because with the simple API call to a large language model like GPT-X, 3.5, 4. We've been working with OpenAI for over 2 years back, and we might have been working with them when they were like GPT-2, and it was like hallucinating like crazy. You couldn't even use it. Actually, we couldn't use it until about 14, 15, 16 months ago, but of course, well before the craze here. The reason it's exploded is because it's very easy to make an API call to something. And the something is pretty interesting. It's this model that is able to generate outputs and answer questions. And that sort of interactive experience is inherently enticing to humans, whether it's video games or it's, I'm here in Vegas, it's gambling, it's this kind of feedback thing. And software doesn't do that. Traditional software doesn't do that. You click a button and something happens. It's very predictable. And what's interesting about the generative AI in particular is that it generates outputs that you don't always know what the output will be. It is, in AI terms, what we call stochastic, which is probability based. It's likely to give you what you're expecting, but not guaranteed. So software says, if I click this and say, I want Arial 12 font, it will give you Arial 12 font, guaranteed. That's exactly what it does. It's deterministic. It's done. AI, if you click an AI application in theory and say, I want Arial 12 font, it could give you Arial 14. It might give you, Garamond, 11, and it's going to be, so it's a really, even though it hallucinates, it doesn't get things right, it's still really interesting to humans, and it's easy to make, and so people are kind of putting it into their applications. But I want to get back to your first point, which is the more important one, which is that what people are doing is they're infusing AI into their applications. And, I've got some LinkedIn posts about this. I mean, you can put wings on your car, but it doesn't make it an airplane. And I think the companies that are the AI first or AI only companies are very different than SaaS companies that are sprinkling, AI pixie dust into their products. Many of those products are getting better, and they're more interesting with AI and basically generative AI infused in their product. But the product, 98% of that product is still that SaaS product. What's interesting is, as you say, if you reverse it and not, put AI into a sales SaaS product or whatever SaaS product you want, but in fact, to just make it an AI company that is able to serve sales or able to serve marketing or the aerospace industry or whatever. And I think the market's got it a little bit wrong because they're putting AI into their applications. Of course they are, because that's their application. The newer companies that are AI first, I would put Pattern AI, our company, in that category, are interesting because we can do so much more because we're an AI first company. We're not putting AI into this big monolith that already exists. And I think you're going to see lots of really interesting applications evolve from this.
And so, in simplistic terms, for people like me, if I was already running a legacy software company and I wanted to be able to integrate this, do they need to start like a skunkworks over to the side and have it be an AI company, or buy an AI first company? I mean, how do they catch up with an AI first company that's built from AI, right at the get-go?
Well, long term, they won't. Those companies will eventually die off, generally speaking, right? The good ones might sort of fake it. There are, there are old database companies that are still around, but generally speaking, the Snowflakes and AWSs and other companies have sort of kind of overtaken them with these kind of cloud or microservices-based models. So it's the nature. I have a LinkedIn post on this as well, but it's a tech business. It's live by the sword and die by the sword. I mean, those companies out-innovated older companies, 10, 12, 15 years ago. And now, because they haven't innovated, that they will eventually get disrupted, and they already are getting disrupted. Now, they'll die off eventually, right? Like all tech companies who don't make that turn do. They have a window where they can kind of fake it in the market for a period of time. And what you're seeing, and to answer your question, is it's in many applications, not all applications are able to have some sort of an AI element to it. Many of them, it's simply just an API call to a language model. Those are, they're extremely inexpensive. They're very easy to do. And so a lot of people who are literally SaaS software engineers who don't know how, they don't know the first thing about how a deep learning model works or how data science works or anything like that, can still look very smart and build an AI application because they're making an API call to a very, very smart AI platform like OpenAI or some of these other companies out there. So it's easy to kind of infuse within your product, and it makes your product inherently more valuable. But those companies largely, unless there's some transformation exists in their product, truly transformational, not more interesting and kind of fakes it, but truly transformational, most of those companies, I believe, won't make it because it is a fundamentally different. AI is not software. I just have to, didn't say that, but I should. AI is math models. That's all it is. And people who don't understand that they're dealing with math and not software are sort of missing both the promise and potential, and also will be disrupted by the people in the companies that really understand how it works, because it's just a massive advantage to understand how AI works.
Okay. And so the newer companies like Pattern AI, the newer companies that are coming up, they were AI first, will
Mm-hmm.
eventually overcome, those legacy companies. Either they can be, bought out, or potentially overtake them. And it seems like, especially in the sales technology world, that there's a lot of upstarts that are coming up. And I don't know if they're AI first companies, or they're just software companies that have a connection to a large language model like you described.
Yeah, it's hard to say. You'd have to look at their architecture and understand, but there certainly are there are millions of software companies that are kind of sales companies that now have AI. I guess you just look at their history and just see, what were they 3 years ago, right? If they weren't like a data science company, like you can go back to the Wayback Machine on the internet and go look. We started off as data science as a service. Like we were building a service that was to give people data science and machine learning as a service back when 4 years ago, right?
Mhm.
You can see that companies that have that. The reason it matters is because if you're a buyer of technology, let's say you're a CRO, a board, somebody, I don't know, CMO, sales enablement leader, just somebody who buys or uses this technology. Well, you have to ask certain questions. And, some of those questions are, is this team that I'm working with, do I trust this team to be the team that is going to take us to that AI future? That's a really important point. You're not buying software for the next 6 months. You really should be buying a partnership with a company that's going to take you down that road to AI. We always talk in our company about the fact that you can buy our software, that's great, but we want to be your AI partner. Like, and I don't mean a consulting company. I just mean that when you start to make AI decisions, including looking at other vendors, I say to customers all the time, like, talk to us first. Like, we're not new to this. Like, it's new. You might be new to it. Your vendor probably is, because they've been doing SaaS for years. Now they're like 6 months into AI. Like, we're pretty deep on this problem, and it's important to have a partner that will take you down that path and be your guide on that path, because it's a completely different model. It's a completely different universe. And that's an important point. So if you're a buyer of this kind of technology, that's one thing, is to look for a partner. The second is, if you don't really understand how AI models work and you're a buyer of that, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble with data security and data privacy considerations, because you can't, once data goes into an AI model, into a deep learning model in particular, you cannot extract that information from a model. I have LinkedIn posts about this as well. It's an extremely important point. Like, you should never, ever work with a company that will use your data to train a model. And there are people in our space who do. And I urge people to read the privacy statements and really study them. Because if your data goes into that model and it can never come out, there's a second part of that which is really important, which is that people can peer into that model because the data is in there, it's hidden. But if you know how to invoke that model in certain ways, you could literally just go, what is David Dulany's favorite color of ice cream? And if it's in there that you said vanilla ice cream is my favorite flavor of ice cream, people will know that. Anything you say, anything that you upload to those models, any data, customer data, conversations, we're in the conversational intelligence business. And so we handle a lot of enterprise conversational data. And we take that responsibility very seriously, because, and a lot of people don't. you can tell what anybody says in any organization if that data gets into a trained model. So it's a, we could talk for hours about that. That is a really, really not important, but critical point.
That is frightening, really, and I think you see the proliferation of security at the conference where you are now. I mean, people are
Mm-hmm.
really starting to look at that and go, "Holy cow!" I mean, everything that we're doing is being recorded, and it's going into some model that we have no control over. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I was thinking of is, when people think about buying technology, there's some job that they're trying to do, that they're trying to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, I've been shameless plug. I've been a customer of Pattern for several months now, and it's my sidekick. I mean, essentially my AI assistant who's
Mm-hmm.
transcribing calls, helping me with the notes, and helping me with the to-dos after, and then I can use the ask pattern feature to further summarize and use all of those
Mm-hmm.
features, and it's helping me to get my job done of what I do
Mm-hmm.
every day. And
Mm-hmm.
if you think about a salesperson, a lot of their day is spent in very rote, repetitious things, doing research, trying to find information, and very little time is actually selling. So when you
Mm-hmm.
think about the jobs to be done, for example, of a salesperson, where do you see applications for AI in helping them to be more successful?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that if you take the sales example as just one example, that our perspective, as you can see on our website, like our unique perspective is, and it is unique, surprisingly, but the unique perspective is that AI, in the future of work, AI will do work for us, right? And so if you're in sales, what work will AI do for you is your question. So a couple things. What work do you want it to do for you? Well, the first thing I want to do is like, don't make me go into Salesforce. Like, just whatever you do, keep me out of that application, that platform, because everybody, hates Salesforce, so to speak, right? It's invaluable because it has your data, but it's not a great experience to go into Salesforce after a sales call and spend 15 minutes saying, and then David said, and then I said, and then he said, and then I said. That's a waste of time. Secondly, what are you going to put in there? And with a platform like, say, Pattern, for example, but there are others, but I believe Pattern probably was the first company to do this in the market. I'm quite certain of that because we've been doing this for a long time. Is Pattern will attend your call and then automatically send that summary and your tasks and other meeting elements into Salesforce and HubSpot into your CRM. And so you're seeing more and more of that now, and it's great to see other note takers in the market sort of doing that. That is a rising tide. There are more and more note takers in the market. And so we both have our note taker in this call right here, which is great. So that's one big thing. Don't make me do the rote tasks afterwards. The other thing is the intelligence, the conversation intelligence side, which shameless plug for Pattern, but we were and still are far advanced, far ahead of the market in terms of our conversation intelligence capabilities. I mean, you see people like some of our competitors like summarizing a call and, hey, catch me up in the meeting. But we were doing that stuff 15 months ago or 18 months, actually probably 36 months ago, but with natural language processing, not large language models, because large language models just came out recently. Well, whether or not you use that or not is up to you, but why would you not use that in a call? Like, it's hard for me to imagine why people wouldn't have a note taker in a call, whether it's Pattern or some other note taker. I mean, one of our competitors. Like, at the end of the day, there's no reason to take notes in a call anymore. That your note taker will take it for you. There's no reason to go back to Salesforce and to type notes in there. There's no reason to like write down tasks in a meeting. I can just say, hey, Pattern, make a task to send David an email after the call, thanking him for the for the podcast. Pattern just captured that. That will be a task. Actually, it's smart enough to understand that that's not really a task. It knows that that's just a for example. But these things so I think the bigger picture here is everybody talks about, AI replacing us. If you imagine that you're 100 people in your job, and one of your jobs is to be the admin who goes in and updates the meeting afterwards. One of your jobs is to be a meeting scribe. One of your jobs is, to sell or to whatever. It will replace the jobs that you don't want to do, like updating Salesforce, like taking notes in meetings, like writing down tasks, like following up with an email and so on. And there are, limitless use cases for what AI can do. So it's pretty exciting to think about all the things that it will do for us, and it will enable us just to sell or just to manage just to, to be better doctors or to be better lawyers. We don't have to take care of the stuff that we really are not good at. AI is really superior at.
Yeah, the mundane, rote, repetitious things. And what's tricky is everyone has a certain number of things that only they need done. And so the job that you need to do is unique to each individual. And that's what's interesting about AI, in that my needs and my daily requirements are different than yours. And so I get one that's
Mm-hmm.
uniquely
Mm-hmm.
patterned to what I need to do, which is just, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, we're still a ways away from really having that assistant that really truly understands you, because that's a very hard problem to solve. And I think this is where this gets back to our original point about, so SaaS companies getting into this. If you don't really understand how AI works, it's very hard to build that future based around AI, because you can't just make an API call to a popular large language model that's off the shelf. You really have to suddenly start building an AI application. And so in the future, if somebody wants to, have an AI assistant that understands them, you can't just make an API call to an LLM to get that output. You have to start doing really fancy and very, very advanced data science and machine learning to be able to do that. And that's where you'll start to see separations between this. I went to dinner last night, bunch of executives. There's a guy who built a really well-known photo sharing website, and he said back in 2001 there were like hundreds of photo sharing websites and applications, and most of them died off, and a couple kind of remained. And the reason why is because they really understood and had a vision way back when of what it meant to be a photo sharing site, and they kind of stayed true to that vision. And you see that the companies that survive are the ones that have a deep foundational understanding of the problem, and they're not just kind of reaching for the new piece of tech. Technology comes and goes. An understanding of the problem only comes from deep either experience or just some uncommon insight that you have or something like that, right? Or conversations like this where you can kind of catch the patterns across conversations. They say, that's interesting. A guy like you has a deep perspective on sales tech because you're sitting in all these conversations. You're like, I'm hearing things. That's really interesting. The ones that survive are the ones that truly, really understand the problem and solve it in very elegant ways.
Yeah, it is interesting because in the sales technology space, there's a lot of engineers who get into it and they go, sales has a lot of issues. And so we can solve those through really great engineering. But they've been
Mm-hmm.
engineers their whole life. They've never been salespeople or even sales managers. And so they
Mm-hmm.
come at it from this completely different angle. Then on the flip side, you sometimes have like grizzled veterans who come out of it and they've been in sales for a million years, but they have no product background or software background, and they're trying to put something together. So it's just interesting to see the strengths and weaknesses on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's good product development, of course, is when you understand that, or you listen to customers. The best feedback of all, the best product developers in the world are customers giving you feedback. Like customers will tell you exactly, because what they want is, your mandate as an entrepreneur is to catch the patterns of what all these people are telling you that they want. And if you hear it enough and consistently, you're like, okay, we got to solve that problem, right? And even better though, if you're a really, really good entrepreneur, like like Steve Jobs, was just incredibly visionary. Like he knew what the problem was before people knew it themselves, and so he would go solve that problem, build it, and then kind of out predicted the market, which is pretty amazing. Some people have high intuition or awareness or just insights. I think what you're seeing in the market today there are some people who are building, for example, sales tech applications that are finally able to build what they wanted to build with these models. And there's some interesting companies doing interesting things. And I think you've got a lot of people who are kind of saying, oh, I'm going to make something that does like LinkedIn posts for people. And that's interesting, but that's not a core classic problem. And the companies that are really valuable are the ones who really understand the problem. They go, finally this technology came along where we could solve this. I'm trying to make farming more efficient. And then suddenly, you know, the steam engine comes along and you've got, you know, the cotton gin or whatever that old story was we learned in like elementary school. I think what you're seeing today is a lot of people who are kind of putting, you know, let's just say a combustion engine in a horse and buggy, but they're not really reinventing. They're not inventing the car yet. They're just making the horse and buggy. They're kind of eliminating elements that were less efficient before, and they're making their product better. But it's very different than people who are rethinking things. The better analogy might be people who are thinking about airplanes, who are building that, versus people who are just making the car better. The airplane was it's just a transformational idea. The idea you can go from San Francisco to New York in, you know, 6 hours versus a month or whatever is very transformational. This is a transformational period in our history right now in the technology space, and sales tech in particular. But by the way, sales and marketing are also merging in many ways. Those teams are collaborating more than ever. I think gone are the days where the marketers, you know, gone are the days for sure where marketers were arts and crafts people just making, you know, colorful things and fancy this and that. It became very data driven and very technology driven. And then gone are the days now where marketers just kind of get leads and throw them over the fence and sales kind of runs with them and they don't, you know, and never the two shall meet or whatever the analogy would be. Now it's more like a project, especially with things like ABM and so on, where marketers and sellers are working together to go capture accounts that they find are really valuable. And that coordination between marketing and sales is really enabled by all this new technology. So generating content that's relevant to buyers, you know, faster and deeper analytics from AI applications in your, you know, sales efforts or marketing efforts, attribution finally getting, you know, has an opportunity to be solved. It's never been solved before. Marketers have been tasked with that forever. There's a lot of really interesting transformational stuff taking place now that's suddenly possible. And for people who've been trying to solve that problem for a long time, it's kind of exciting time to be in the space.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And our friend Dan Gottlieb, I don't know if you cross paths with him, and he's
Yeah,
now
I love Dan. Dan's great. He's
yeah,
over at Garden. Yeah.
he's a great analyst, and he christened it like the sales action hub. So it's everything for sales and management outside of the CRM in kind of one thing. And you see a lot of consolidation happening. And Greg,
Yeah.
I have to say, if folks do not have the Pattern AI assistant, go and get it. I think you can get a free trial. It's really life changing for me as a you know, white collar professional. I think we're kind of going the way of the dinosaur. But what you've done is amazing, and it sounds like we should also be following you on LinkedIn for thought leadership in the AI area.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Certainly on the thought leadership side, I do have controversial views because I sort of see my role as, and I've said this on LinkedIn to people who are saying things who are, in fact, probably more, you know, famous than I am, and they have, you know, 50,000 followers. I'm like, hey, you know, you can't say that because that's not true. And people look to you to be a leader. And I wish the Valley, especially leaders in the Valley, you know, who've been like you and I have been doing this for 20 years, who really have the perspectives, you know, should be less kind of salesy and much more like, hey, you need to understand this and let me be a thought leader on this. And, you know, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to, you know, believe that it's true, but you should at least hear a different point of view. There's a lot of snake oil in this town. And it's in this era with AI, it's the way I liken it is like AI is like nuclear technology, but you know, but everybody's got access to it. And, you know, fortunately, nuclear technology is only in the hands of whatever's like a dozen nations or something like that, right? But imagine if like literally a billion people had access to nuclear technology. Most of them, you know, there'd be some really amazing people who build like some amazing, you know, flying machine or whatever. But there'd be some bad people doing bad things, whether, you know, intentionally or unintentionally, where like, you know, if you're playing with fire, something's going to catch on fire. And AI is like that. And because it's kind of cute and fun and interactive and cool, it's like, oh, we should do this. But they don't understand that this is a very, very powerful technology. And even in, you know, the world of sales where, in our business, nobody dies. I mean, and generally, most salespeople just kind of sell, but you're dealing with customer conversations, you're dealing with customer needs, you're dealing with people ranting about their problems, sometimes about their bosses, sometimes about their coworkers, saying, oh, these, the marketers aren't doing this. And and it's a big problem because they can't get their act together. Those things then sit in that model. And then what you said is, is there available to anybody? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You see these companies that are putting out these AI models and they're like, oh, our model is will not answer certain, objectionable questions, or, won't, generate objectionable content. And I say, what's objectionable? Like, who are you to say what's objectionable? If I say, our marketer's stupid and I'm in sales, if somebody has trained an AI to say, well, stupid's a bad word, and I don't think AI should answer questions about whether or not somebody's stupid because that's not nice, then you get into this very dangerous and slippery slope. And I have LinkedIn posts about this as well, where AI is refusing to do what you're asking it to do. And I want you to kind of ponder, and the listeners,
oh God,
I just urgently, ponder that future where AI will refuse to do what you want it to do. We saw, I have a post about, Elon Musk's Grok application or model, which is their response to OpenAI. So he thinks OpenAI is too woke, and he wants to build something that's not woke. Okay, well, that's fine. So I commend you on trying to come up with a different model, but they call theirs rebellious. And then I say the same thing I said in my LinkedIn post, but ponder that future where AI is rebellious. Like,
oh boy,
that's a very, very scary thing. AI that will refuse to do what you want, on the one hand, for those companies out there building the safer AI that won't do these things that are bad or whatever. AI that refuses to do what you ask it is a very bad AI, in my opinion. That's not the AI kind of company we're building. On the other hand, the other extreme are the people out there building the rebellious AI that says it's, it will rebel a little bit. It will have a little bit of a personality to it. I'm not so sure I want that either. What you want is AI that you can trust. And that is going to be the thing that the battleground for AI will be, who has the most trusted AI in the market. That's our mission as a company, to build the world's most trusted AI. But when you, as a sales buyer or a marketer buyer or anybody in any organization buying AI, like, the number one box to check is, do I trust this AI? And think about what that means. And then you'll make really smart decisions as you buy your AI technology.
wow, okay. Now I don't even know who to trust at this point, but I have seen Terminator and I've seen The Matrix,
Yeah, I
and
love them
they
both. Yeah.
scare the crap out of me.
Well, you see
So,
Tom Cruise, Reckoning, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning. I just saw it over the
Minority
weekend.
Report, oh my God, it's all out there. And now I think we all have a lot of homework to do, and start reading those long click to accept things. What exactly am I clicking to accept here? So,
Yeah,
Greg,
yeah,
thank you
yeah.
so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. And we'll, number one, sign up for Pattern. Number two, follow you on LinkedIn for sure.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it.